Alrighty, so it looks like we are live. And we have a couple of people in here already. Looks like Lauren is in here, Nicole, Paula. If you guys could hear me, type 1 in the comment or chat section, which you guys should probably see on the right-hand side of your screen, just so we know that you're here. There we go. Nicole said hello. Hi, Nicole. Hope you're doing well.
How are you doing?
So it looks like Vanetta also just joined in. Chris, are you able to see your comments?
Yes.
Perfect. So we'll be getting this started very, very soon. If you just joined in, let us know if you could hear us. We are doing great. I hope you and your family are safe and healthy. Nicole, awesome. Lauren could hear us. Awesome. So we'll be getting this going. Just want to give people enough time to jump in. I'll be right back. Give me 2 minutes. All right. So how's everybody doing today? It's like we got already 6 people have joined. Hey, Chris, I'm going to open up the chat so everybody could see it. There you go. So everybody should be able to see their comments now. So Paula, she's doing well. Awesome. Lauren could hear us. So yeah, so like basically, and like I said, I want to give a couple more minutes as people join in, but this chat section is going to be where you guys can ask all your questions. Just keep in mind that the way we're going to be structuring this is we have a presentation to walk you through first, and then we'll give some time for some Q&A afterwards. So type in your questions. We're going to see them, and once we get to the Q&A, we'll start going through them. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions on that. So it looks like Alga's here, Lauren, Nicole, Paula, SJ, Vanetta. For those that just joined, type in 1 in the chat if you guys could hear me. Okay, so we'll be getting this going in 5. I can hear you. Yeah, I want to see Chris. Okay. SJ, you don't see Paula's most recent message right after Chris? That is weird. So what I'll be doing is I'll try to read through these messages. It's set to public, but
so what we'll
technology.
We'll recap the major questions that people type in. That way we can make sure that we address those and everybody understands what we're answering.
Okay, it looks like Paula can see all the comments. Awesome.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
And SJ just see. Okay, perfect. You can see everything. Awesome.
Great.
Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes and we'll get this rolling. So there's a couple people that still haven't said hi. Don't be shy. We want to make this as engaging as possible, and the more engaged you guys are, the more you'll be able to get out of this. So definitely try to take advantage of this. Chris has been doing this for over 7+ years and has a huge wealth of knowledge. So yeah, if you guys want to interact, ask questions, like I said, we'll take note of them and we'll go through them once we hit the Q&A session. But yeah, the more you guys engage, the more you're going to get us excited and the more you're going to be able to get out of this. So that is all I want to say on that. Okay. Okay, awesome. Alka could hear us. Perfect. So we'll give it another 2 more minutes now, and we'll get this rolling. Yes, it's an online school at Georgetown, and I haven't been in an online class or even school in so many years. That's even though it's not even that long, it still feels foreign to me.
Yes, the
yeah, your microphones are muted.
Yes. That's just to prevent us from over talking each other. At some point, we can make sure everyone has a platform to get their questions and answers addressed. But for the initial part of the make sure everyone gets the benefit of hearing what we have to say. You don't have to worry about taking notes. Just focus on the major themes. We can share the presentation with you afterwards. Also, if you want to go ahead and take this time to write your questions down so they can be addressed after we complete going over the presentation.
Okay, so it looks like we got 1 more minute to go and we're going to start this. And guys, keep in mind that you will have, like Chris said, the recording to this, so take as many notes as possible. Oh, it looks like Richard just jumped in. Hey, Richard, if you could hear us, just type 1 in the chat. So Alka's saying that, Chris, try to speak a bit louder. You're there. Okay. She has a hard time hearing you. Cool. It's very muffled. I can hear you well.
Okay,
on my end.
Does that help?
Okay. Yeah, so Lauren says it sounds clear to her.
Sometimes, depending on your internet connectivity, sometimes you will hear a buffering sound, just depending on how fast the data in the page is loading. Sometimes repositioning yourself where you're closer to your router, so the information streams more continuously without any glitches.
All right, it's 8:05, Chris. Ready to get this rolling?
Let's get started.
Okay, well, first off, I just want to tell you, well, thank you for joining this. It's going to be very, very exciting, and we really want you to get the most out of this. So for those that just recently joined, the more engaged you are, the better the more you're going to be able to get out of this entire presentation. So the way we're going to structure this is we're going to first start with just going over Chris's journey when he first started his practice to being able to scale that to 20 plus locations, and then opening up another practice with a very solid foundation that he was able to build off of his initial practice. But after the presentation, there's going to be a session for Q&A. So just type in your questions in the chat as they come up. We'll take note of them, and once we get to the Q&A session, we'll start going over each of your questions. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen with you. Give me 1 second. And you should be able to see my slides. Let me know, Chris, if you see them.
Absolutely, they're clear and visible.
Okay, awesome. So I have my comments here. So we're good. Okay, perfect. So let's get this rolling. So as you guys probably all know, we're here to really talk about the IV industry, and more specifically about what's really been successful in allowing Chris to grow all of the different practices that he's not only built himself, but that he's helped other fellow medical practitioners and entrepreneurs do the exact same thing. And the goal, at least for the first part of this call, is to kind of walk you through Chris's journey and really just emphasize on the biggest takeaways that Chris was able to take as he was building this, and really like the core foundational pillars that got his first mobile business up and running. And like I said, being able to grow that to multiple locations, multiple brick and mortar stores, and being able to duplicate the process over and over again. So a bit about myself, I don't want to spend too much time here, but educational backgrounds in accounting. I'm also a CPA. I've consulted for some pretty large firms like Deloitte. And long story short, after spending a couple years in the corporate world, wanted to kind of venture on my own. So slowly started my freelancing thing, which eventually turned into to a medical marketing and sales agency. And that's also how my path and Chris's path kind of intertwined. But right now, my core focus is really helping medical practices, more specifically cash-based practices, your med spas, your IV therapy lounges, your plastic surgeons, your chiros, dental practices, and really helping them scale through paid marketing. Now, in terms of Chris's background, and I presume a lot of you might have heard about Chris in one of his podcasts on Nursepreneurs. But initially, Chris studied at the University of Auburn and was drafted into the NFL until he, got injured and pretty much had to pivot his career. And that's when he decided to become a nurse. I believe after 18 plus years in the field, working the ICUs, the ERs, he pretty much reached a point where, financially he was doing pretty well, but he was working crazy hours and was already concoctioning all these different IV formulas for his patients. So that really gave him the foundation and, of course, the confidence to jump on his own because he was already providing the services for people, just not doing it, just collecting for himself. So that was one of the biggest things. And of course, just not being able to spend as much time with the family, working 80 plus hours a week, just started taking a bit of a toll. And he really wanted to explore something and really build something for himself, his family, and his future generation. So this is when he first started HydroPros. Like I said, this first started off as a mobile IV business, which eventually scaled to multiple locations. I believe they 21 plus markets, several brick and mortar stores. And he was able to duplicate this process for a second practice called Resurgence Wellness, which is more on the health and wellness side. And of course, Chris is doing much more, especially in these past 2-3 years. He's been really focused on helping medical practitioners and different entrepreneurs start their cash-based practice. So let's jump right into HydroPro. So like I said, I really want this to be focused on the biggest takeaways. Have your questions ready. I'm going to really try to get straight to the point because I know you'll be getting a lot more value out of the Q&A session with Chris. And as I'm going through these slides, I'll also be passing the mic over to Chris for him to expand a bit more on these different topics that we'll be covering. So first off is, of course, social media branding, and especially starting off, one thing, the hardest, people think it's really hard to get patients when the fact of the matter is they're pretty much, in your back door. It's just a question of getting the message out there. So keep in mind, especially starting off, leverage social media, leverage your friends, leverage your family, make sure everybody knows exactly what you do, who you serve, and the type of services that you provide, because this can take you a very long way, especially starting off, as people start sharing on social media, commenting, and just creates a ton of organic engagement. But one thing, as you could probably notice, and I'll let Chris expand a bit on this, is especially starting off, this is really the most important piece at the beginning, is really understanding the type of practice that you want to build, really understanding the big picture in terms of, what success looks like to you in 12 months, 5 years, 10 years from now. But at least starting off, really knowing the market that you want to serve is extremely important as you're building up the brand. And Chris, could you expand a bit on your unique selling proposition and the most important things to consider as you're really building this branded foundation?
Absolutely. So 20 to 30 years ago, the standard for release of a new company was a press release. So if there was a new restaurant coming into town, or a new business, or a new dress, or a new boutique, the press release was a pretty standard format for notifying people of these things going on and then having social events follow from that. In today's age, information can go viral. So your media presence and your branding are very important. And so this is a free platform that allows you to get that same presence as everyone else gets. Yes, you don't start out with 2 million followers, but you're able to build on that. So you can get the exposure you need, but you have to start out by producing content. And a lot of people say, well, what is consistent content? What is relevant content? And so that's different for every single person. So one thing about being an entrepreneur, you have to change your mindset. So you have to look at things from a different perspective. everyone is not your customer. So let's just look at, Walmart's model of business. Walmart wants to attract the masses. Every single person could possibly be a Walmart customer. But look, their prices are low and they are a volume-based business. But at the same time, let's look at Bentley. Bentley is a very high-end company. They don't even market usually on TV. They market in magazines, they market in watch locations, but for the majority of their customers are high-end clientele. They don't advertise prices because if you can't afford a Bentley, you shouldn't be coming to the Bentley shop. So my whole premise is, find the middle ground in between. You don't want to be Walmart, and maybe you don't want to be as exclusive as Bentley or Ferrari, but you find that medium. And so as you view that, find other companies that are like yours or companies that you like or that you identify with. And like Lemon, like CrossFit or things that are associated with people that will be using your service. And that's the media. That's the type of media attention that you want to relate to other people in those same demographics. You want to use imagery and information that attracts them to your business and to your website and to your Instagram, social media, Facebook, etc., etc. So the main thing is understanding you have to have a specific audience that you're going after. Once you decide that specific audience, Matthew mentioned something called the USP. So your unique selling proposition, every company usually has one. Startups, a lot of startups probably don't, but if they are a startup in Silicon Valley and they've been through rounds of fundraising, that's a requirement. Like, okay, we make sandwiches. Okay, what makes your sandwiches different from anyone else? And so that's going through the process of saying what you really offer, what you bring to the table. Yes, our goal is to make sandwiches, but our expertise and provide value to clients that they've never received before. That's the unique selling proposition. For some of you, that may be different things, but at least identifying what that is will help you to scale the concept of your business and actually mold your model. And it's important to have those specifics because without having those specifics in the plan, you don't know which direction you're going. Just like they say, an idiot with a plan can always do a lot more than a genius without one. Even if it's simplistic or something that's very, very infantile or something you say, this is just, this is very bland. You still need to have something in place so that you have a target and a benchmark to gauge afterwards. So if you determine that your branding, that your outlet is not reaching the people that you want to reach, you have something to hinge that against. And you can say, all right, we did not meet our benchmark. Why are we not doing that? And then you can redirect and improve from that point.
Awesome. So yeah, just to recap that, really understanding your target market and building the messaging around that, which is your brand, is going to be extremely important to bring the type of patients that you want to deal with. So, and just taking branding like one step further, like when Chris was starting off, I mean, of course, all of his mobile units were heavily branded, but Chris, you want to just quickly talk about the collateral that looks like, Chris, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Awesome. Yeah. So you just want to quickly talk about like how heavy you went into branding and all the different type of collaterals from paperwork to pens. I think it's going to give people a good idea of how branding is important.
So, when you grow up in the era as of right now, you see things multiple times and multiple presentations. Like, for example, you go to a movie theater. They very subtly introduce you to the concept of Coca-Cola with the pictures on the wall. You sit down in the movie theater and they have Coca-Cola advertisements. Then right before the movie comes on, they say, please don't forget to go get your Coca-Cola, from the concession stand. So that's multiple times they've introduced that same concept. Uh, notice, you know, a lot of times having parallels and repetitive presentations is going to help people better identify what your product is and the service that you offer, and then they internalize it. So it's almost subliminal. So I made sure that our brand preceded us everywhere we went. We had large banners, we had trailers, we had trucks, anything that you can wrap. I mean, I even wrapped a building. I mean, some of it's probably, you can consider tacky or over the top, but they got the message out. We were the first IB company to do events, mobile services, and have brick and mortar locations, probably nationwide. And so because of this repetitive, you can say it's tacky or tasteless, but it got the job done. The job is to get the business out there to generate revenue. And we were able to accomplish that, even with a small snapshot of viewing the types of collateral that we created, that we produced, and that we circulated. The responses were overwhelming. If nothing else, people were saying, "My God, look, we see HydroPros, we see you on billboards, we see you on TV, we see you on, vehicles driving down the street." So, I mean, and that's how we're able to grow at an exponential rate. So, you know, just remember, this is not your lifestyle. This is a business, and a business can take on a lifestyle of its own. And so, if the business requires tackiness, just like those people who stand on the street corner for tax companies, they stand in the Statue of Liberty, or they're wearing a pizza suit. Like, oh my God, that's totally obnoxious, but it gets the job done. It attracts people, and believe it or not, it brings in business. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. So you change your mindset of doing like, okay, I don't want to do something that's abhorrent or that's uh, irritating, but now you're in the mindset like, hey, what are the metrics? What are the numbers on the activity? Does it get people in the door? Does it generate business? Okay, then that's what we'll be doing in order to meet our goals.
Perfect. And that's a very good point. Like, don't forget, businesses don't have emotions. So don't let other people's feelings affect the way that you're looking at your numbers, because I could tell you right now that's going to distort everything and throw you on the wrong path. So thank you for that, Chris. And another thing too that I wanted to quickly touch upon is really, starting off, we don't have any testimonials and reviews, but there are many ways to leverage other people's audiences and other people to talk about, your business, about yourself and the amazing things that you do. And this is really simple as taking a picture and just like you see something that's very consistent. Like every time Chris was out, every time Chris would have somebody take a picture, there was the branding everywhere. And it's as simple as incentivizing somebody to, whether it's somebody that has a bit of influence or even just somebody that has, a couple of thousands of friends or hundreds of friends, one picture could go a very, very long way. And on top of that, you're also building instant credibility through this. One thing that you saw on Chris's personal page was a ton of people tagging him. And imagine if somebody wanted to know if Chris was legit or not and saw all this social proof. This is really how you build instant credibility without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars on marketing to get the brand out there. So that's one way. And of course, just leveraging different mini celebrities, mini influencers in your space in terms of the target market that you're going after is going to be super, super critical to get the brand out there as quickly as possible without having to spend, again, tons of money in marketing, because all it takes is a picture of the brand and just somebody sharing it on their page. So just keep that in mind for those that are worried about, oh, do I have enough credibility? Am I going to have enough people trusting that I can provide these services? Just incentivize your first clients, your first patients to promote the brand on their personal pages, social media pages, and that will take you a very, very long way. And another thing that Chris was able to do very successfully, I mean, he did obviously, learned a lot from his mistakes as he first started off, and I'll let Chris expand a bit on this. But in terms of going after these different B2B like partnerships, whether it's sporting events, whether it's music festivals, even, going after different businesses, don't keep in mind that like, employers want to make sure their employees are effective and obviously healthy. It's a great, especially with everything going on right now. And we'll touch upon how the coronavirus is, going to have an impact on this industry in a very positive way for, many medical practitioners. But don't forget, there's so many different avenues that we could go down in terms of building up these different partnerships. Now, there's a lot of things that we also have to be very careful on. And Chris, could you just expand on at least your biggest takeaways and the things that you would avoid doing and things that you would focus on doing if you had all the knowledge when you first started approaching these different types of partnerships?
So what I would like to do is go back and address what you were saying about credibility. So a lot of times, start you with direct patient care, either at the bedside, in emergency rooms as primary care providers, things of that nature. So a lot of times we have a tendency to verbalize our ideas and our dreams because we want validation from other people that that's a good idea. So think of it like this. A lot of times, people are fearful, they're scared. Everyone's, people say they're afraid to fail, which failure is a learning process. There's nobody, no company on planet Earth. I don't care if you're talking about Microsoft, Amazon, Nike. They have all failed multiple times, but it's through those failures that they learn how to be successful, and they have become the great companies that they are. So when you sit next to Sally Sue or Billy Bob over here, and they're giving you their advice, neither one of them has had the courage to start a business. So really, their opinion is irrelevant. So even grandma's like, hey, you can't make $1 million that way. Honestly, you have to say, Grandma, I love you, but have you made $1 million? You have to learn to listen to people, take matter experts. Like, for example, if you have a heart issue, are you going to go and talk to the podiatrist? Or better yet, are you going to go talk to the lady in the cafeteria? Absolutely not. So remember, a lot of times the people that are going to give you the most resistance, self-doubt, and lack the ability to give you confidence and to reinforce you are people that you should not even be discussing your business ideas with. They don't have the courage, nor do they have the concept or mentality to be an entrepreneur or go down that road. So why waste your time even going through that with them? You know, a lot of times when I worked in the emergency room and I was talking to doctors and nurses about my ideas, you know, they poo-pooed them and said, you're going to fail. That'll never work. That'll never work. But guess what? A lot of those people ended up being my employees. So it's all about your dream and your vision. It doesn't matter what anyone else says, what they see, what they're thinking. It matters what you think. A lot of times you have to have the faith and to see things that have not become apparent or have not transpired. That's what it's all about. You see something no one else, a pile of rubble and dust, you see an empire. So, and that's how dreams are made. That's how things are built. You know, you just have to understand that and have confidence in yourself. And no matter what, you just keep fighting. You know, I saw a quote the other day. It says, you know, if you're going through hell, you know, the worst hell possible, why would you stop there? Keep going. So even if you're going through hell, if you're stuck in a situation with your business or what you're trying to do, don't say stuck in hell. Just keep going, keep moving. That's all you gotta do. Keep moving, keep getting back up, and you will start to get successes. You know, and then take pride in those small successes that you get along the way. Small successes lead to bigger successes. Um, you know, Matthew was, you know, commenting on some of the, you know, failures and things that I've done in the past. And, you know, I'm not some business guru who has all the answers. Initially, I was just a healthcare person who worked in the hospital, and I just knew that that model could not sustain itself. You know, just like when you look at, you know, a hospital and they have, you know, only so many beds, like they're not going to be able to reach for what I could tolerate. And once I started to see that, you know what, this is not my hospital. I can't run it. I can't make the rules, but perhaps I can do some of my own and do it my way. And so that's when I decided I was going to, you know, create my own business and start something and build it the way I wanted to build. With that, there's a steep learning curve because medical people, we know how to take care of people, but we don't know the ins and outs of businesses. I don't have an MBA. I didn't go to some fancy business training. I had to learn from the school of hard knocks. That means I wasted a lot of money. I made a lot of mistakes. I've, you know, had a lot of expenses, but now I have knowledge that, you know, you can in essence say I paid for my Wharton School of Business or I paid for my Harvard School of Business degree, you know, in proxy through the learning experiences that I've had firsthand, which no one can take away from me. And so that's, you know, majority of people that have a lot of uber successful businesses, they don't have college degrees. They don't have MBAs. They hire those people to work for them. So you just have to put yourself in a different mindset. So afraid to make, you know, terrible errors in judgment because they didn't ask for help. Either they thought they weren't going to receive it, or they didn't feel that they were respected enough that they would get the help that they actually asked for. But if you don't ask, you don't receive. So if you need help, you have to ask for it. Trusted individuals around you, people that you know, ask for help. Lastly, you know, don't be rash about, you know, decision making. When I say that, you know, what I'm referring to is a lot of times opportunities present themselves that seem like they're too good to be true. And when that happens, that means that they are too good to be true. Be very leery of partnerships, you know, having joint owners and, you know, having people involved with your business from a contractual basis. They don't share the same vision and dreams as you do. Because where you feel that you're doing that to start because of necessity, you don't have another option, it usually ends up in a very ugly and nasty divorce. So keep your circle very small, depend on yourself, seek the resources you need, and then realign. Always look for process, develop benchmarks so that you know where success should be. As you reach those benchmarks, see how you can reach further benchmarks. You know, evaluating processes, reevaluating what you're doing, seeing, you know, finding opportunities for improvement. You know, with a continuous improvement, that's how companies are able to grow and grow and grow and get a larger, you know, market space. So I'll give you an example. You know, for a long time, Walmart was neck and neck with Kmart. Then something happened in the early 90s between Walmart, Sam's Club, and just their purchasing and distribution power. They just took it to a whole other level. You know, fast forward 10 years, and Kmart was literally out of business. And so Walmart was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they were the biggest, baddest distributor on planet Earth. And then Target showed up. And so once Target showed up, Walmart had to reassess and reevaluate. They started opening up small market stores and doing things differently with their branding and advertising because now they have a competitor. So just keep in mind, a competitor is always on the horizon. football level of play. It will push you to be better and do better things. So always keep that in mind. You have to have continuous improvement. If not, you'll become obsolete.
Are you able to hear me, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, awesome advice. So we're gonna quickly go through the next slide here and just kind of just re-emphasizing the biggest takeaway. Like everywhere Chris went, it doesn't matter where, he had some type of branding with the Hydro Pros logo somewhere. Even when he would go to more of these formal events, just keep in mind like one picture, all it takes is for you to slap on a t-shirt, which takes 10 seconds to do, even less. And one of these pictures could go a really, really long way. And like Chris said, like things could become viral or semi-viral or mini-viral, whatever you want to call it, but it's still viral and really leverage other people's audiences. And like Chris said, don't feel embarrassed about wearing the logo. People, family members, friends might be talking, smack to you and telling you how you look stupid with that on. Like really don't take any of that advice to heart. Just again,
Absolutely.
first ask yourself.
They're going to be asking you for money later, so don't listen to them at all.
Especially if they've never really done something for their own. So just keep that in mind. I could just be honest with you guys. Like, I have a lot less friends than I had 5 years ago. Not because I don't want more friends. It's just that I had to keep my circle really tight. There's one saying where you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And I absolutely believe that. So just make sure, like, not only that your circle is tight, but you're also around the right people that are going to be supporting you throughout this process, whether it's there in the business or just being an emotional support for you. So that's really the biggest things, Chris. Before we quickly move on to Resurgence Wellness, because it looks like we're 30 minutes into this, and I really want to make sure we have some time for some Q&As or anything that you want to emphasize or you want to add on to what we just covered for IV hydropose?
I just want people to remember that although this is a process, so when people say, I hit it big, I had this, overnight success, that's not the reality. On average, overnight success takes about 10 years. So don't don't feel like you're unsuccessful because you haven't, come up with some brilliant idea and it took off overnight. That's not a reality of any situation. And if it does happen overnight, like the stock market, it will have a correction. So just keep in mind, this is about diligence and effort. It is really about, the hare and the tortoise. You have to have the endurance to run the long race because you're going to meet adversity. You're going to meet situations that you may not clearly see an end to, or a situation that you don't see a positive outcome, that's formidable. So you have to stay the course and you have to, work hard and do your due diligence no matter what. And those that stay the course and do that, they come out on the other end, because the reality of it is, whether people know this or not, well, right now especially, it rains for everybody. But those that make it through the storms are the ones that are prepared and they have an umbrella. So just keep that in mind. This is not, a sprint. This is a marathon.
Awesome. So that's pretty much the biggest takeaways here. And of course, there's a lot more that happened as Chris started expanding into those different markets and opening up brick and mortar stores, and of course, adding different other marketing elements to the mix. But from what I saw, a lot of people here are either thinking of starting or have just started recently. But I'm going to be going over another strategy that we use heavily to scale HydroPros and, of course, scale Chris's other practice called Resurgence Wellness. But one thing that I can tell you is once you understand the principles of building a business and understand the principles of the importance of having systems and processes, KPIs and metrics to evaluate how well those systems are doing, did Chris start out in a building or mobile? So first, Chris, you want to answer that question since we're on
So did I
HydroPros?
start out in a building or mobile? So originally how I started out was doing events. So we would do large events like partnering with Reebok and doing Spartan Race and doing country music festivals. And through that, I had to figure out where I was going to store all these vehicles and all this collateral. So I actually went to my friend and said he had a large warehouse that he wasn't using. I said, hey, I need to store my stuff here. Is that okay with you? He's like, well, where's your office? I'm like, I don't have one. He's like, yes, you do. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, go back there in the back. You're going to build out that space, you're going to create your first office. So I mean, I literally created an office out of storage capacity, not necessarily thinking that I wanted to bring location. Events took off. We started doing mobile services and multiple demographics, and it took off very well. But then I came to realize there's a balance of customers that you're going to have. You're going to have those that say, you know, no matter what, I don't want you coming to my house. I'm going to come to you. Okay, which is fine. Then you have those that say, I'm not getting out. I want someone to come to me. So we were able to service, dual roles by, having what I call the dominoes model, where we have, take out and carry, and walk and dine in. So people could come in, receive their services, or we could deliver it to them. It just depended on, what they wanted, what was convenient for them. It's all about meeting the customer's needs. And since we were able to meet those roles, we were able to expand very quickly and efficiently.
Awesome. So yeah, just to tie back to that, like once tie back to what I was saying in terms of the systems and processes, once you figured that out and you really have the math behind what those benchmarks are in terms of performance from your team, from the company as a whole, it becomes a lot easier to be able to duplicate the process because you have all this data and you really know what that model looks like in terms of like if you put $1 inside of the machine, how much is coming out. So this is how Chris was able to expand so quickly, was he had that 7-figure model locked down and really had a solid foundation to be able to duplicate over and over and over again. And this is also what allowed him to start his other practice called Resurgence Wellness, which is more on the health and wellness side, obviously offering IV therapy and a whole wide range of services. But literally just a couple months, we were able to take this to a multiple 6-figure a month business, I believe by month 8, if I recall correctly. And one disclaimer that I want to make here is one, Chris already had that 7-figure foundation built out. He already knew all the right systems, all the right processes, all the right protocols to be able to deploy with his team. And of course, he had a lot of fuel to his fire through paid marketing. And that's really what allowed him to grow so quickly. And just tying back to the whole branding strategy, there's different levels of strategies that you could deploy based on the resources that you have. Of course, starting off, I'd highly recommend to use more of those organic strategies and really leveraging other people's audiences. But this is another way to really build that instant credibility as quickly as possible. And this is getting on, of course, different media outlets, different magazines, and really pushing out not only Chris's brand, but also Resurgence Wellness, which is, as I'll get to very soon, Chris was wanting to really make sure that his team was at the forefront of the brand. Of course, he wanted some media exposure here. But moving forward, wherever you see Resurgence Wellness, like even if you go to their website, Chris won't be on there. And there's a really important reason why, and I'll be getting into that in the next slide, I believe. But this was really how Chris was able to scale up all of his other locations with Hydra Pros and also Resurgence Wellness very quickly, was through paid marketing. Now, I highly don't recommend to go down this approach if you haven't built that solid foundation yet, if you don't have a solid sales process yet, because you'll be throwing a lot of money down the drain. But it's through these different forms of advertisement that we were able to bring in a ton of patients at a very, very fast rate. And this was primarily done on Facebook and Instagram because of the reach that we had. So this is hands down, especially in this medical industry, just so I could give you some value. Like we do Google campaigns like, PPC and stuff, or pay-per-click, where people search and you probably see the ads at the top. We do those for higher ticket services, but to really scale up, especially on the IV side, hands down, the best way to do it is through these different types of offers and advertisement that you'd put out there. So in terms of the biggest takeaway here, and I'll let Chris talk about this. Chris, like, I know when you first started Hydra Pros, you were taking all the phone calls, you were setting up all the appointments, you were doing all the consultations, you were going to all these different events. You're really the face of the company, and I'm sure that was something that was really good once you first started. But what was the biggest difference that you did when you pretty much deployed the Resurgence Wellness brand and you started building up the team there?
So the first business I had, I was an entrepreneur. It was a hustle. And so I hustled my way into success. And I'll explain the difference here momentarily. The second business I had was a scaled operation. So let me explain the difference between the two. So let's just say you're a nurse, and so you want a side gig, so you teach CPR or you do pick lines on the side on the weekends. That's additional money. It puts food on the table. It can pay for kids' tuition. It can do a lot. Pay the car note, pay the house note, expenses. What you own is another job, because if you don't perform those services, you don't get paid. So let's talk about the difference between a medical professional and an entrepreneur or a business person. So medical professionals, we're always prone to take charge, take action. Let's perform the best, highest quality service possible. So a lot of times you go in the doctor's offices and everything is bottlenecked because the doctor has to do everything. You got to see every patient, touch everything. And so I noticed that with my first business, I had to be involved with every process, or else the ship wasn't steered, the train wasn't moving. And so if you want to scale a business, it's almost impossible. So there's two books that every person needs to read: The E-Myth and The 4-Hour Work Week. Okay. The second business is what a business owner would do. Someone who operates businesses, they would set up a mechanized business that runs like a machine. A business is not emotional. It doesn't respond to uh, vacillation. Is consistent. It's methodical, and it's calculated. And so when you do that, it's operationalized. So I'm not even involved in the operation. Whether I'm alive, dead, traveling, whatever, the business is still moving and making money. And that's the definition of a scalable business. Now, will your very first business be that way? No. A lot of times you are the janitor, you are the CEO, you are this, you are that. And so you got to make it happen. But as things start happening, you have to delegate. So a lot of things, what I learned is like, yes, I'm 100%. I can do all these tasks to full efficiency and capacity. I'm very productive when it comes to getting stuff done. Other people, maybe not so much. But, at the same time, me at 100% versus 10 people at 70%, those 10 people at 70% can still contribute and can complete more than I can get done. So let's look at the Walmart business model. I hope no one gets offended when I make this analogy. So let's look at Walmart. Walmart is the largest retailer on planet Earth. They hire, majority of the workforce is part-time. They do not have they usually have not completed secondary education or any baccalaureate status. Tertiary wise, most of them have limited skills. They're either doing it as a retirement job or based on other things. So what is the main premise for me saying this? Walmart operates their business on a full out platform where they have loss of revenue from people not checking stuff out, not having competent individuals run their store locations, employee theft. There's a lot of misappropriation because they don't invest in their talent, they don't invest in their workforce. But every quarter, they're still making billions of dollars despite the errors in human activity. So what does that tell you? That their business is a full-fledged machine and it works no matter what. Whether there's people there, whether there's robots there, it's still generating money. So just use it as a concept. You're never going to have perfect individuals. It's 150% effort. So as you build your business, you do have to understand that you will be diluting the quality of what you do amongst other people. And that's just the reality of it. They're not all going to be 100%. They might be 60%. But you have a workforce of 25 people at 60%. They can accomplish more than you can. And then you can focus on selling suits while they're focusing on selling socks.
Awesome. Okay, so that was really the core of the presentation, and I really wanted to keep this straight to the point and hope you guys got some value. Actually, if you guys thought this was helpful, before we move into the Q&A session, could you just type 1 in the chat? More feedback, the better. We really want to make sure that you get the most out of this. So yeah, just let us know what your thoughts are so far. And of course, it looks like Nicole already has a question too. So yeah, if you could type in your own questions, we'll be getting that to very, very soon. And for those that pretty much wanted to know also about like the new solution that we put together for people that want to start their IV business or add it to their existing practice, we'll be going over that in not too long. But really what Chris has been doing, especially for the past 2 years, a little over 2 years now, is he's really focused on helping other medical practitioners and entrepreneurs to really achieve their dream business and obtain true financial freedom. Now that he's been able to do this over and over again, not only with his businesses, but also being able to do this with other fellow medical practitioners, different entrepreneurs. He really wants to really get the word out there, especially with everything going on. Like IV therapy is so downplayed right now. It's not going to be, but it's very downplayed in the past market, and people didn't really understand the importance of being more proactive with their health and taking better care of their immune system. And not only that, it's a humongous, very profitable business model, but it's also a great way to contribute and really have a real impact on your community, so people could start living, a lot more healthier, especially considering everything that's going on. So one thing that I just want to quickly go over, because I know there was one piece that we did not cover yet, was with regards to startup costs. So I'm not going to spend too much time going deep into this, but just so you guys have a ballpark figure. So in terms of startup costs, sorry, I'm trying to look both at the comments here, but for a brick and mortar, like the average person starting off that has absolutely no experience and no real guidance in building this, for a brick and mortar, startup costs are going to be around $70K. And for a mobile business, they would be around $55,000 to really get things up and running. And Chris, with regards to working with you, I know startup costs are going to be a lot lower because you know exactly where to allocate your money and how to spend it very efficiently. So around $40K for the brick and mortar side and $25K just strictly working with Chris, like close to like 30% just right off the bat. But Chris, in terms of how you would pretty much restart things, what would you be focused on if you were to start IV HydroPros all over again? What path and what would be your plan of execution?
So, when people say, how do you assess these costs and values? So that's a huge thing. So let's just make another comparison. Let's say me, myself, and I've been tasked with going to Neiman Marcus and buying high-end purses. I don't know crap about purses. So I go to Neiman Marcus. I'm going to pay for these purses. I'm assuming they're $5,000 to $6,000 a pop. Okay. And I go there and I'm like, well, how can I resell these? I don't have any margin. Okay. Once I become well, I seen these same purses are being produced by textile facilities in Chinatown and Los Angeles. So I'm going to go to Chinatown and Los Angeles, and for that same $4,500, I'm going to buy 10 or 15 purses and then sell them at 30% less than what they're selling at a retailer. Okay, so you have to understand your margins, you have to understand your numbers, and that's not a regular education or training. You can, there's classes you can take. You can go to the Small Business Association, but really you just have to get really immersed. Your stuff doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be all organized and labeled with spreadsheets and Excel documents. You can take a pencil and paper and go through and say, how much does this cost? Okay, how much is it costing me to sell this? Okay, how much money is left over after I sell this? And if it's negative, that means you're losing money. Is it positive? It's like, okay, I made 50 cents. So then that tells me, I have to sell 700 purses a day to $150 a day. So if we sell 1,000 purses a day, then we're profitable. So it's about understanding your numbers. So when we talk about starting a business, if you start a business with no resources, you just have to figure out the cost on your own because you don't know the industry, you're going to pay a lot more money. So the reason why I'm able to start things at a lower cost is because I've done it multiple times. I've started 25 other IV companies. And even if you just want to look at it from a supply perspective, I have my own group purchasing organization. So I'm assuming most of you guys have probably heard of Hospital Corporations of America. They're the largest healthcare company on planet Earth. They have like 180 something hospitals. They have a couple of offices in the UK. They own Care Now, and they have now thousands of physicians' offices. So imagine what they pay for supplies. It's probably pennies on the dollar. So it's all about volume. The first time you make an order, you have no buying power. You're nobody. So you're going to pay the highest cost possible. Once you get to a point where you're buying volume, you can negotiate. Like, okay, yeah, I've been paying this price. Well, I talked to Sally Sue over here. I talked to the guy at the corner store, and he's willing to give me a 25% discount. You want to play ball, or do I move my money somewhere else? So when you're purchasing units, that allows you to get discounts. And so what we've done is we pass on our discounts to entrepreneurs and people that want to start their businesses. They help them get jump started so they can reduce their cost and their liability entering into the business realm, and use that to help catapult their success. They can move those funds towards other things, and maintaining their residuals and just keeping a reserve versus putting it all up front into the cost. When I first started, most people are like, well, you need a business plan so you can get a loan, and you need this and you need that. Well, I created a business plan. There was no loan. I went to banks. There was no collateral. They're not going to just lend you money. I have no credibility. I don't have anything. So what I did was I invested in myself. Now, this is scary for most people. Why would you invest in yourself? Because I don't. Why? So I went to my 401k and I said, give me my money out of my 401k. And I'm just like, okay, if I lose it, okay, so what? I just make it back again. So, when you have faith in yourself, it's like, what are you feared of? If you fail, okay, great. Money can be replaced. Look what's happening to 401ks right now. Take the risk on yourself. If you have a 401k, if you have money that you don't have to borrow, utilize it. I mean, think of it like this. If you had to eat peanut butter and jelly and Vienna sausages for a couple of years so you can live like no one else for the rest of your life, is it worth it? Without sacrifice, nothing can be achieved. You have to sacrifice in order to get to that point. It's not just like, oh, this easy transition. I started a business. I don't have to work. I'm sitting at home eating caviar. I don't know who came up with that idea, but that's not the reality of it. You double down, you work hard, even if you have to self-fund, healthcare professionals are in a unique position where we have the capacity medical facilities and companies in order to meet our bottom line. What other profession can work 7 days a week, get bonus pay, ECB, emergency pay, bonus money, travel money, all these incentives when there's a need? I mean, don't burn yourself out, but the end goal is like, hey, I would do no longer, and you got to think about the vision. If your vision is to be a better medical professional, then great, stick to it. But if your business is to like, hey, I want to change generations after me, meaning like, I want to have an inheritance that I can get to my kids. I want to have a legacy that I leave to them. I want to change generations for my grandkids, great grandkids, et cetera, et cetera. I want to be able to create that wealth. Nobody has ever gotten wealthy working for somebody else. You either win the lottery, even if you become a CEO, you don't necessarily get wealthy. There's a lot of risk, and you have to climb that ladder, which that's a non-normative event. 99% of the people who want to achieve more are not going to become CEOs. That's just the reality. So what other do you have? The only money in this country is to create a company. A company is not based on your values per se, meaning like, I want to be a top healthcare professional. It's based on metrics. Now, obviously, you have a mission statement and you have core values, but the business is a machine that's going to generate the money that's going to allow you to free up your time. The biggest thing about being an entrepreneur is valuing your time. You don't want to do $2 tasks. You want to do $100,000 tasks. Now, obviously, there has to be a transition point, but think of it like this. If you no longer want to exchange your time for money, you have to change the concept of how you think. If you're a doctor, when you start your business, you're not the doctor in your business. You're paying somebody else to do that. And people think like, well, why would I pay someone else to do something I could do? Because you're running the business as yours and they're doing a lower task. Name one business that is financially solvent, that is uber successful, and the owner of the business is there doing the work. It didn't happen. Not in the NFL, any industry. That's not how it works. So you have to change your concept and your mind frame to how you want to attack this. And that's where the possibilities, come to play. Most people look at like, oh, 40K, that's a lot. That's 2 or 3 months grinding at the hospital for any individual. You can get it done. So if you want, it's all about desire and intensity. How bad do you want it? If you want it that bad, you're going to make it happen no matter what. If you have to open up a lemonade stand and sell clothes at the thrift store and at the flea market to make it happen, you'll do what's necessary to make the changes that you want to make in your life. Because at the end of the day, there's no excuses. The sad part is people come to this country, they don't speak English, they don't have any family, they don't have any resources, but next thing you know, they own all the gas stations in town, or they own all the real estate. Why? Because they're sacrificed. They did things that most people were not willing to do, and now they can live a life that other people can't. So what are you willing to give up in order to achieve your goals?
Awesome. So yeah, that's really what we've been up to lately. It's, after Chris has acquired all this wealth of knowledge and really understanding the process to duplicate this business model, whether it's brick and mortar, whether it's mobile, over and over again, we've really been focusing on trying to get the word out there and really empowering other practitioners on the medical side and entrepreneurs to, bet on themselves and really build the business or the lifestyle and have that lifestyle, that financial freedom that they've been looking for. And one thing that I do want to point out is really take the time to understand what your ultimate vision is. I know Chris spoke about that several times because that's really going to kind of set the stage for how you're going to be building this business. There are some people, and there's no right or wrong answer in this. Some people want to build a humongous empire, want to have multiple 7-figure practice, 8-figure practice, multiple locations all across the nation. And that's definitely something that's doable. Just obviously it's going to require a lot of work. Whereas somebody might just want to build, $500,000 business that's self-sustaining, and they could spend more time with their family, take more time off, go on vacation, have some extra cash flow for savings, and really just being able to live a much better life, getting paid fairly the same with a lot less time going into the business or the company that they would normally be working for. So just make sure you understand that. I know a lot of people, their first thought, and especially when I kind of jumped in to my entrepreneur venture, was about making $1 million in my first year. Just keep in mind that you really need to have that long-term vision in place, because money is not going to be really that motivator. It's going to be the impact you're going to be able to have on either your immediate family or, like Chris said, building up that lifetime legacy, building up generational wealth that's going to be able to take care of your immediate family, future generations for a long time. So again, there's so many different avenues that you could take, and we've been able to really tailor Chris's really knowledge and business strategies around that vision for these different types of practices here that we've been working with. And Chris, if you want to just quickly talk about Carrie and Iowa IV, and just talk about revenue, because I know they've been really focused on just growing organically, and they've been very, very well at doing so. If you could just quickly talk about Carrie, how you first started with her, and what she's been able to accomplish in 2019.
So let me just preface that. So we're talking about, everyone wants to make 7 figures, 8 figures. So let's put a couple of things in perspective. Let's just say you do make 8 figures and you get lucky. You're out the gate, you're making tons of money. Well, the goal is, scalability and margin. So if you spent, 8 figures to make 8 figures, that wasn't a good, calculation. So, you have to put other things. It's not just about how much money you can make. If you're in this because, obviously you want to be able to become independent, you want to change your lifestyle, change no longer your time for money. But all you're looking at is like, oh, we're going to make $1 million this month. Then you've completely missed the boat and you're going to miss your goal. If you do make the $1 million, you're going to lose all your customers. So the goal is to not recreate the wheel. Don't waste time on ineffective processes and doing things that don't work. For example, I'm like, I think I can make the best hamburger on planet Earth. So we're going to go do some research and development. We're going to bring in the best products. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to bring this hamburger to market. No matter what I do, I will never be more efficient, more productive, or sell more hamburgers than McDonald's. Now, of course, McDonald's does not have their hamburgers not taste the best, okay? But even Warren Buffett will tell you, don't focus on the product, focus on the processes, focus on the delivery method. And their processes are so far light years ahead of what I'm doing and what I'm trying to create that it would be counterintuitive. It's like, hey, if my goal is to create financial solvency and stability for my family, that's what most people do. They buy proven, tried systems that already work and are in place, and they just go with that because that's going to get them a higher return on their investment. And there's some stability and credibility to that because that same platform or formula has been utilized multiple times to achieve the desired results. Okay, let's talk about Iowa IV. So Des Moines, Iowa, let's just say, on a good day, it might have a population of about 350,000. And that's when the caucus is going on. So very, small middle-class city, nice place to visit, very cool and calm. You probably won't even see a police officer or hear sirens. It's a laid-back town. So the first month Carrie was in business, she did about 15 grand, which whoop-de-doo, that's not impressive, okay? So, but it's in Iowa. She's the only show in town. Let's fast forward a year. She's doing about $95,000 to $100,000 a month. So, I mean, in a place like that, this is one of those things where they say may vary. This is like an outlier. This is unusual that she would be able to do that well in a place like that. But because she utilized the marketing tactics and the collateral and the campaigns that I built, she was able to catapult her success. And she literally didn't even start the campaigns till, after she had already achieved that revenue success. So her revenue success literally came from her website, word of mouth, and just by branding and having that consistent service and being able to deliver time upon time, so people can attest to that. And she was able to build most of that revenue organically. Now the sky's the limit that she's added the marketing campaigns, the click funnels, and the targeting into her entourage of different tactics that she's using to attract business. It's going to grow even more exponentially. So this is definitely a success story. So, I mean, even if you are, 75% successful as this location, that is still tremendous success. Remember, it's all about margins. So yeah, you may bring in $30,000 a month. Now, if your expenses are only $6,000 a month, that's great. That's nice money to put in the bank. But if you're bringing in $95,000 a month and your expenses are $85,000 a month, that's not so great. So we have to put things in perspective. So the business will grow, the revenue will grow. We got to control the margins because that's what puts money in your pocket. Once we control the margins, we can scale, and then you can get more money in your pocket residually over time. Okay, remember, marathon.
Right. And just to add that, more money in your pocket that's coming in recurringly with very little effort of you putting into the business, like Chris has been able to experience with Resurgence Wellness. So now, Chris, I think the next slide is questions and answers. Before we get into that, I'm sure a lot of people, obviously with everything going on and the coronavirus being very predominant right now, and obviously in all the news and all the cases that we're hearing, sure people are going to have a lot of questions on, when do you think it's a good time to start? What I would love to know is kind of your thoughts, not only on how it's going to have an impact on the medical landscape, but also how it's going to have a direct impact with regards to people's ability to be more health, conscious, and really how IV therapy is going to play into all of this.
So, as a healthcare provider, I've worked in several hospitals and places where I've taken care of the sickest of the sick. Disseminated tuberculosis, H1N1, bird flu, viral encephalitis or West Nile virus, Zika virus, all of these, viruses that have very high contagion, SARS, MERS. I even taken care of patients with Ebola, okay? And I had never seen a response like this. I can remember back in 2009 or 10, if I'm not mistaken, 245,000 Americans died just from H1N1. I don't remember them declaring a state of emergency or anything like that. I'm not trying to make this a political platform. So the scenario is different now. The rules are different. The game is different. The goal is to protect the 30 million Americans who are at high risk. It's no secret we are one of the most unhealthy countries in the world. We are the most overweight country, and we have people that have several comorbidities such as high blood pressure, diabetes, congestive heart failure, so on and so forth. So we also have the highest strain on the medical industry than any other country because of the people are living longer, and so they're carrying these diseases out for a longer period of time. So what the government has decided to do in order to protect those 30 million people that have been identified as a high-risk population, the other 450 million of us are being subjected to quarantines, social distancing, things of that nature, but to protect the few versus just quarantining the few and allowing business to continue as usual. In other countries, they're allowing people to just develop their own immunity. Not necessarily survival of the fittest, but seeing with this virus, children, healthy young people, majority of people either asymptomatic or have very minimal flu-like symptoms. So, now at this point, the vaccine is not imminent, so we have to deal with the reality of it. So what I've noticed in my business, we had a drop in, obviously elective procedures and treatments, but in IV therapy, we actually went up exponentially. This provides an opportunity because now people are more informed about their wellness. How can I prevent myself from getting coronavirus? Obviously, with good hand hygiene, not necessarily alcohol, but actual soap, because friction is what gets rid of microbes. And then, using good cough etiquette, covering your mouth, covering your nose. If people sneeze, you turn your face away so you don't get particles in your eye. When you're in a room with someone that coughs, you leave if they're coughing, or you have them wear a mask because of particulates in the air. So IV therapy has gone up. Mobile services have gone up. People don't want to come to the office, but they still want to receive care. And a lot of people are informed about vitamin C, vitamins. They've seen the Korean study that showed that they use high dose vitamin C, also in conjunction with plaquenil, azithromycin, and other antiretroviral medications to reduce uh, the duration of the disease and also minimize the symptoms. So people are being self-educated and they're finding out. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to offer a service, especially if you can do it mobily, where they're not risk, coming in contact with other individuals, and people can go to their homes and provide the services. A lot of people have fear of what happens to the medical professionals. So let me tell you what the CDC said. CDC has now recommended that we use bandanas in lieu of N95 respirators or N100 respirators, if those are even available to you, because it's a lower cost. They've also recommended if you have, you just have to use PPE. So the CDC has that recommendation. Obviously, our standards are going to be much higher than that. People are well protected, and like I tell everyone else, people are so fearful. It's just consider it like the flu. It does have respiratory complications when people have autoimmune or immunodeficiencies. But you just like you treat everyone, when you're dealing with blood exposure, treat everyone like they have hepatitis or HIV. If you treat every person like they have coronavirus, you're going to be protected. So just remember, as a healthcare professional, everyone is guilty until proven innocent. So everyone's infected until proven otherwise. And so we take those precautions and use our standards, no different than anyone else. And if you do that, not only are you going to protect yourself from, COVID-19, but you're going to protect yourself against the next super virus or resistant bug or, MRSA, necrotizing fasciitis, et cetera, et cetera, MRSE, all those different types of things. You always use standard precautions, okay? So if you're comfortable with that, I think opportunity, but to capitalize on people's knowledge and awareness of their health and well-being. How can I be more healthier? How can I use vitamins to boost my immune system? If I am having flu-like symptoms, how can I hydrate myself? When people come to the hospital with the flu, whether they're tested for COVID-19 or not, what do we tell them? Symptom relief, hydrate, take antipyretics, and get rest. So we can do all those things intravenously with intravenous vitamins. So, there's a benefit to having that knowledge and having that resource available that you can then relay that and, offer that to the people in your prospective locales. So here in Texas, they have mandated some non-essential businesses be shut down, but, I literally have a medical clinic. We're actually doing testing for COVID-19. So we will be in full operation. So a lot of our mobile services will be in high demand because a lot of people don't want to be exposed or want to get out into the open, which I understand. But our goal as healthcare professionals, we can't change the politics, we can't change what everyone else is doing, but what we can change is their awareness. We can educate people on disease processes, pathogens, and contamination, how transmission occurs. We can teach them how to protect themselves. We can empower them, and we can give them the resources they need and supplements they need to help fight off or ward off these infections, a la IV therapy, IV vitamins, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's really a huge opportunity here to make a difference. And I think after this resolves, people will be more vigilant in seeking out services that are more holistic or that are more preventative in nature than they were so ever in history.
Awesome. Yeah, and just to tie back to that, like even of course, with this virus, it's a bit different, but like we have economic crashes that happen every 5 to 10 years or so, and yes, there are a lot of people that go out of business, but it also opens up a lot of pockets of opportunity. And Chris and I were just talking about this, I believe, a couple of days or not long ago. But right now, the biggest thing, and really what's going to allow these different people starting off or that have an existing practice offering IV therapy is really educating the market. There's going to be a humongous demand for this as people start educating their local market, and really the first movers on this are going to be able to not only financially capitalize on what's going on, but also make a humongous impact on the entire health status of the country. So yeah, definitely something that's big, but yeah, I just wanted to go over any questions you guys have. I know I saw a couple in here already. So we answered Vanetta's question. Are you starting a sterile compound in your state? Chris already has his own pharmacy. Chris spoke about that. Do you help? So Alka asked, do you help with training and building new IV businesses? Chris, are you still there?
So, the whole premise of creating this platform is to give people the resources they need to empower them to become entrepreneurs. Like, obviously, we can sell licensing, we can sell franchises, which that's not the direction I want to go, because that's in essence holding someone hostage. So, the goal is to empower people where they can create their own brands, their own identities, and build their own businesses. So, yes, we do offer services that help with training and building a new IV business. It just depends on the level of support that you need. We can go as intense as being right there with you side by side, hiring your staff, training your staff, teaching sales, educating on the sales process, setting up your clinic, and showing you how to actually implement the business. I mean, everyone knows how to start an IV. That's not that's not brain surgery, but the mechanics around that and the logistics around that to operate a business are a little bit more multimodal and require a high level of functionality. So yes, we do provide one-on-one services, but people they're more acclimated to the business environment. We offer IV Business in a Box, which is basically the blueprint and structural components you need to operate your business. You still have to build your house, just like if I gave you the blueprint for a mansion, you still have to get the materials, you still have to get the contractors, you still have to build the house, but at least you know what you're building. So it just depends on the level of influence and support that you need. The goal is to get you to be self-empowered and build your own dream. Of course, we're there for reinforcement. I can tell you historically what has worked, what hasn't worked, and where innovation comes into play. So, we want to do things that help you, going to motivate you and catapult you to success faster. We don't want to go backwards and recreate the wheel. So if you're interested in those tools and resources, Matt will kind of expand on those. But we want everyone to be aware that, yes, we do have a support platform in place for different levels of involvement regarding assistance with business services, consultation. Wondering if we can purchase from your pharmacy. Depends on what you want to purchase, or if you're in the state of Texas. Some things we can ship. It depends on what state you're in, because we're licensed in certain states. Some states allow us to send some things versus others. But the thing of it is, you can go to the FDA website. There are literally 2,400 compounding pharmacies nationwide. So even with my own pharmacy, there's some stuff we can't get. So you still need to have a list of pharmacies that you can utilize in the event that there's a shortage, this person runs out of that. You always have a backup. So, in short, yes, you can order from us, but the goal is to have a list of multiple pharmacies from which to order from. A lot of the supplies we use, I go directly to the manufacturer, which most people don't have access to that, but because we order such a high volume, we bypass the distributor and go straight to the manufacturer. So it's just like IV fluid, tubing, IV star kits, IV, those types of things. Do you pay the startup all at once to initiate services? It just depends on the model at which you want to operate. So let's just say you start a mobile business. Well, obviously, if you have a mobile business, you have to have supplies before you can operate. Do you have to have all the supplies? Probably not. You don't have to have everything all at once, but you need to have enough to where you can support a clientele. Because what's going to happen is, the law of entropy always happens. Somebody's going to call and ask for the ingredient that you don't have. And because you're not prepared, remember, when you start a business, you want to make a splash. That's why when people say, I want to do this as a side hustle, then you can't grow it from a side hustle, because your initial contact with a person, people are going to remember that first experience. That's the first impression that you're going to make, and that's the lasting one. And that's what's going to set the standard for your business. Now, obviously, you want to put the best foot forward and make the best impression possible. I don't want to give the impression that I'm a sometimes business owner, and then I want to give them the impression like I'm 1,000. I'm always here. I'm always present, and we're always serving the community, and always here to meet people's needs. That's the message I want to provide. So, from that perspective, I want to make sure I have as much as possibly essential to get started with. At a later point, we can have a one-on-one discussion in depthly about what is considered essential versus non-essential. Just imagine if you were in an ICU and you had to provide certain services. What's the physical supplies would you have to have in order to do that? So, we can just look at those different scenarios. Let's see. You're in the state of Colorado. In the state of Colorado, we can ship sterile compounds and non-sterile compounds to the state of Colorado. How long does
Chris,
it take that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chris, sorry. It looks like we had a question from Brandy, which I don't think we answered. She asked, to start a mobile business, did you start in cash? how much did you set aside when you first started? So I know you spoke about that. If you want to just quickly
Well,
expand on your
that's
question.
what I was answering. I was, verbalizing that I took the money out of my 401k. So because I had never done this before, I had a model, I had created a business plan, but in my perspective, it's like a elementary kid drawing with the crayon versus a business person, typing in a spreadsheet. I was with the crayon making my business plan, and I ended up spending a lot of money. So I could only spend what I started out with, which is not a tremendous amount of money, but I used that I had in hand. I couldn't fund myself. I worked every day at the hospital. I picked up every shift. I worked as a coordinator. I did different things at different hospitals. I provided mid-level support at psych facilities. I mean, I literally worked 7 days a week at nighttime so I could run my business in the daytime. So, whatever I need, I got. If I didn't need it, if I didn't have it, then obviously I couldn't get it. But as you can see, I bought $100,000 trailer. I bought a $65,000 truck, which truck day one. I had the trailer day one, and I ordered a ton of medical supplies. So it just depends on your approach to the business. I think now the word is out and people know about IV therapy, so you don't have to necessarily take that approach. But I mean, if you've got 25K set aside, and remember, you always have to have a reserve. So if we get more in depth and I work with you one on one, there's something called a break even analysis. So when we look at financials, we'll look at the one-time cost, like you got to buy a computer, got to buy all these different things to start the business. So you have the one-time cost. After the one-time cost occur, then you're going to have residual costs like insurance, lease, payroll, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll notice that on a monthly basis, the first month you're always negative because you bought all that stuff and you're not going to, usually you don't make enough to cover those expenses. And then you're going to notice that that red area gets smaller and smaller every month as your revenue grows. So as the revenue grows, the goal is to get to a point of what they call break analysis, and you're not quite in the black. And then you increase to being on the black. Well, that's all about planning and structuring to understand what those numbers look like. And that's based on your demographic, where you are, what market you wish to serve. There's a lot of different variables to that equation to determine what the exact set numbers are. But as Matthew showed you in the presentation, he gave you a roundabout figure of what the estimated cash reserves are to get started either on the mobile or brick and mortar business with a consultant or doing it on your own. Do you pay the startup all at once to initiate services? So, that was back to what I was saying about having things that are essential and non-essential. For the most part, I would probably want to have the cash, even if you didn't spend it all on day one, just to have that cash flow, and that way, because what'll happen is just like if you're building a house, you'll be like, okay, I need this is my budget, this is what I need, and so a lot of times people will tell you a rough estimate is whatever your budget is, double it, because you're going to have an incident, all that come up, miscellaneous, et cetera, et cetera. That's bound to happen. So, having the cash up front, at least from your estimates, gives you the best chance of success. How long does it take to have the business up and running from consultation to doors opening? It's literally based on your aggressiveness. Even if you had no consultant and you were just hungry, like I'm motivated to get this done no matter what. So what I tell people is like the first thing we do is we're going to plot out a timeline. We're going to say in 20 days, I'm going to have all filings in place. In 28 days, I will have the underwriter have an insurance policy. In 30 days, I will have staff interviewed and prepared for a starting date. At day 40, we're going to be training staff and we're going to be doing simulations to the services. At day 45, we're having a soft opening no matter what. So you put those hard deadlines in place so you can meet those goals. Otherwise, it's like, I'll get to it when I have time. But you set hard deadlines in order to meet those. I mean, I've gotten people open a full-fledged less than 60 days. I've also seen people that have taken 240 days. The more aggressive doesn't necessarily correlate with the more successful, but having the want to, the desire, and having the work ethic, that does correlate with the success. It's about you don't want to do things half-assed. You want to put your full effort into it and have the best preparation possible. Now, with that being said, nothing is ever going to be perfect. You're never going to be fully prepared. Starting a business is just like saying, well, I'm not ready yet to have a kid. I have to wait till I'm ready. You'll never be ready. There's not enough preparation. You'll say, all right, March 23rd, we're going to wake up and have a kid. Everything will be planned out and perfectly ready to go. That's only in a fairy tale. With the business, it's like, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Let's go. Let's execute. Because once you're fully ready, the opportunity has already passed you by. So the aggressiveness to which we can get your business open and started is based on the resources that you have and the time management capabilities. Are you able to devote your time to getting this done? It can be 1 5 days. Usually, I would say 45 to 90-day window is usually realistic, depending on the model that you want to execute. Do you recommend starting the business with employees or just depending on yourself and allowing the business to grow, then bring in extra? Well, that depends. Like we were talking about having a side hustle versus having a business. If you have a side hustle, it's just you. And so people see your face and see your brand, so they depend on you. And obviously there'll be a coverage area that you will lack. There'll be services that you wouldn't be able to deliver because it's only one you. And it doesn't mean you have to have 50 employees, but the recommendation is if you want a business, then you need to start out with at least a few employees that can meet the demand of service. Now, most people are like, well, I don't want to pay employees if they aren't doing anything. So the lack of demand, that's a different issue. That's not on the employees. That's something else that we can work on and fix to help you generate customers. But I would definitely start with a workforce if I'm going to invest my money and I want a serious business.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions? I know Kiara's been really on it. Is anybody else that again, you have Chris right here. I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions, so don't be shy. Really want to make sure you get the most out of this. And if there's anything that you want us to expand on and based what we covered, again, we really want you to get as much value out of this. And I know Chris did mention that we have this solution that we put together, and there's different ways that you could potentially work with Chris. But before getting into that, just want to make sure that we have everyone's questions. Oh, it looks like Kiara has another one that just came in. Should employees in your business be RNs only?
Well, that depends on what state you're in. So a lot of it's based on legal capacity and what can be delegated. So I've used a multitude of staff, so we would just have to confer with you on an individual basis. But it's based on your state, where you operate, and how things are mitigated in your operations. Different. If Colorado versus Texas versus New Hampshire, all the rules can be different. So that's something we can talk more on an individual level, so I don't give you incorrect information.
Okay.
So another thing about COVID-19, let's just say you're fearful and you don't want to get started quite yet, or you're in the midst of operating a business or a clinic. So you can call the Office of Emergency Preparedness in your state, and you can see what you can do as a clinic if you want to help in their endeavors. Sometimes they will contract services to you. Like right now, they're looking to set up testing centers. They're activating the National Guard in lots of places to come in and assist with triage and basically screening, drive-through testing and implementing different clinics and things of that nature. So there's always opportunities to enter the market and provide a service that people need. So that could be your introduction. A lot of those people may need IV services. It's something that you could, have a spin on. Even if they don't, they're going to remember that place that I got tested at, they offer IV services, and I'm probably going to want to go back, after this goes away. So it provides a tremendous opportunity, and then people get to see you in the community helping. Even if you can't generate money from it, you can still make a presence and you can help a lot. And the goal is, in healthcare, it's like when someone presents with symptoms, do we worry about testing them for the flu? No, because it doesn't matter what the test is. We treat them the same no matter what. With COVID-19, the urgency to test is they want to collect the data. They want to determine the amount or the footprint that this virus has spread. So I'm speculating this virus actually got here around November. A lot of people have built an immunity or inoculated through it just by various means. Transmission has probably evolved multiple times, but the goal is they want to get accuracy as far as numbers, which I think as far as getting the economy back to where it should be, we need to hurry up and do these tests, because once they see that the mortality rate and complication rate is a lot less than projected, that will probably let up of a lot of people's fears, and they can be more vigilant and focusing on the at-risk population and making sure they're secured versus the general masses.
Awesome. Anybody has any last questions? Also, if you guys see Chris, do you see my screen by any chance?
Yes. So he's got the the link there on your screen now for ivybusinessinthebox.com. And basically, it's a scheduling link. So basically, this initiates. Basically, you're gonna fill out a small little questionnaire, and it just sees if you would be a good match for us to help you in your journey. If you feel so, it takes about 2 or 3 minutes to do it. We'll get the app, and then we'll be in contact with you and start.
Yeah, Chris, I actually removed the questionnaire. Yeah, I actually removed the questionnaire off this one. Could you hear me, Chris? I think I lagged for a bit.
Okay, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I actually removed the questionnaire on this one just to make it simpler. So if any of you want more information on the different services that Chris has, ranging from his one-on-one consulting all the way to these different programs, consulting programs that we put together based on the amount of access that you want, just schedule a call with me. I'll be more than happy to walk you through all those different options. And we've really just put something together really, really special. I would say almost a couple weeks ago, and we already have some members that have signed up to join this IB Biz in a Box Accelerator, which is a new solution that Chris is putting out there to really be able to get his knowledge, all of his strategies, pretty much his business model to more people. Initially, when Chris was doing his one-on-one consulting, he was charging, at least on the IB side, a minimum of $25K, and it was direct access to Chris. He'd physically be there with you, building the entire business, negotiating all the contracts, whether it's with your MD, whether you're, wherever you're leasing your office. But of course, that was a pretty big financial investment, especially for people with not much experience in the business world. So we put together this new solution, and I wish I could have gone over it in more detail, but we'll be able to go over it during the call. But the biggest thing about this is you'll pretty much be getting the same information, the same knowledge, the same tools, templates, paperwork, literally everything that all of Chris's existing consulting clients are getting. The major difference is outside of being directly physically with Chris, we've moved it over to an online platform where we'll be able to jump on calls together, and Chris will be going over all the different topics, covering all of the major pillars to build a strong foundation, not only from a medical standpoint, but also from a business standpoint as well. But just go over to that link. Let me just make sure it works. I also posted it in the chat, but you'll be able to schedule a call with me, and I'll be able to walk you through that new solution, and of course, answer any questions that you might have. So just before we go, one, I hope this was valuable. If you guys could just give us some feedback and let me know your thoughts, that would be awesome. We really wanted to make sure that you got the most out of this. And if there's anything else that we could have covered, please let us know. We're going to start creating a lot more content moving forward just to get the word out there. We really want to empower medical practitioners and pretty much just show them how Chris has been able to do this, not only on his own multiple times with other fellow practitioners as well. So just let us know what you guys thought. Feedback, anything is greatly appreciated. Don't worry, like anything negative, we take constructive criticism. So we have 5 minutes to go. So anyone has any last questions, or everybody's good to go? Looks like we still have 10 attendees on here. So Richard, I believe so. Let me just double check. You should have the ability to filter it out here based on your time zone, but I think the default is set to Eastern. All right, so any last questions? I know Alka's still on, Kiara, Lauren, Nicole, Paula, Richard, SJ, Teresa, Vanetta. I want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to give a couple more seconds just to make sure the last questions come in. And you guys have access. You can always respond back to the emails that I said if you have any questions. You can also text me. I'll give you the number right now. Give me 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. I'll get you that number. We also have our texting platform where myself, Chris, and his team are there to answer any questions. Let me just stop sharing because this is slowing down my computer a little bit.
Also, Also, keep in mind, everyone, questions are good. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So a lot of things that people may consider common knowledge is really not. I mean, sometimes you have to ask a question nobody else asks in order to get that answer, and that's going to give you a lot of times a trajectory from which to, start working and organizing. So don't feel like your question is beneath or maybe not constitute, Uh, the complexity that's needed for a business. If you have a question like, okay, what is a business plan? What is a EIN number? Whatever questions you have, please let us know. Is it possible to work the hospital? Well, to me, everything's possible. So you don't have to be as crazy as I am. But like I said, I work every night, 5 to 7 days a week when I first got my business started in order to ensure that we had the financial funding to support all the things that I wanted to do, to support the staffing, the traveling, going to events, and making sure we had supplies on hand. Do you have to go to that extreme? No, you can probably do 3 or 4 nights a week and then work your business 4 to 6 hours in the daytime. So, yes, it is very possible and diligent. You just have to be disciplined and manage your time very effectively. And for those of you who like, well, I got kids in the family, I got kids in the family and I was in school and everything else was going on. So there's always there's always something that's going on in your life that's going to create a stronghold or something that can prevent you from achieving your goals. But if you want to get something done, you can accomplish it no matter what. Yep, you can do it in school too. So effectively and being realistic, I could stay up for 24 hours, but I wasn't very effective at doing that consistently. So you have to have, a barrier. Say, okay, great. I can do 12 hours today. You can do another 4 hours afterwards, and that's it. But you just have to have consistency and be disciplined. If you're not consistent, you can never gauge your progress to determine if you're moving in the right direction.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Chris, for your time. That's number one. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this presentation. And again, if you guys have any questions, you could either schedule a call with me, you could text me, and if you were too afraid to ask it publicly, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to help. And I guess at that, Chris, do you have any final words before we go?
I just want to tell everyone there's no time like the present. Obviously, the week is just and sensationalism, but as medical providers, even if it doesn't matter if you're MA, a nurse, or the janitor that cleans up, if you got experience and been in the medical industry, you know how these things ebb and flow. It's no different than any other the latest trend of virus that comes in town. So just prepare yourself, give yourself multiple options. But just remember, in times when people are fearful, investors are greedy. And when people are greedy, investors are fearful. So, this is an opportunity to make a lot of money or to lose a lot of money. It's up to you to decide what type of opportunity is going to be for you. So you remember, money is a byproduct of the work and diligence. It's not the ultimate goal. The money will come, but put in the effort, value what you're doing, appreciate it, love it, and make it your passion. And then the sky's the limit.
Awesome. Well, I guess on that note, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night. Of course, stay safe and healthy. And if you have any questions, just let me know. So take care. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll probably have another one someday. But right now, we'll make sure that you guys get the recordings of this and stay safe.